It is finally here, the long anticipated album that potentially could rival the likes of Brand of Sacrifice. Can it be done? Will it be done? We're gonna find out today, because we're gonna be looking at the latest release by Mental Cruelty, A Hill to Die Upon. Quick question for you. Do you like the band Emperor? Well, of course you do. But let's just say you wanted to be a bit more. You wanted to maybe a bit more modern, have a bit more of that modern metalcore production, heaviness, breakdowns, because we all know you love breakdowns. Well, Mental Cruelty has you covered with their latest release. Now, coming into this as a newer fan, I wasn't sure about what I was getting myself into. I always knew Mental Cruelty to be more of a slammier band, and that's what it was for most of their releases in their discography. But as I was going back through their discography, going through each album, I noticed that there was always this hint that they were sort of straying to a more mature sense of writing through the use of ambience, orchestration. It was very prevalent in their previous release, In Ferris, where there was moments where it was like straight up almost blackened to an extent. And here with The Hill to Die Upon, they have gone all the way with this and have embraced the blackened deathcore aesthetic to the fullest, and it seems they're not going to be backing down. And this all starts with their first track, Ultima Hypocritic. I'll never be able to pronounce that, but it's the first track, and also this is grouped in with the opener of Gong. Again, I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly. But pretty much, this was also their first single that came out, and I did do a reaction for it, so I'll leave a link if you want to go check it out in full, as well as I did do reactions to many other tracks on this album. Now, this track caught me off guard because it was so different to what I was expecting from the band. Opening up with this acoustic, almost classical Spanish vibe, building it up, very blackened, reminded me of tracks such as A Curse by the band Worm Shepherd, and of course, the opening track from Lorna Shore's previous album, Immortal, called Immortal. It builds up, gets more atmospheric. This transitions into the first main song, Ultima Hypocrita. Straight away, does not hold back, goes straight into that blast beat, black metal feel, adding orchestration in the background to bolster the weight of the music that's being played. But then all of a sudden goes into their slammier roots, and might I add, very well transitioned into those slammier roots, to the point where I didn't even notice that we were going from technically one genre to another. And it was seamlessly done, and we also get our first moments of Luca, the vocalist, doing what he does best, being that mighty voice up front and center, being commanding, being aggressive, and that is what we got. It was a really nice combination of the two genres, and what is great about it is that this is what we get for the entire album. To note as well that this track also incorporates the use of choirs in the chorus sections as well as clean vocals in the form of a backing saying Satanas, which I thought was a really cool effect. I like the fact that the drums opened up a bit and allowed the low end to sort of breathe a bit more, and also let the vocals and the mid-range instruments do their own thing. And it was great. This also featured guitarist from Rings of Saturn, which I will butcher the name, so I'm going to write it somewhere here, who did a guest solo, and it was pretty substantial. I really enjoyed it. However, I did feel like it was a bit on the long side, and I would have probably more preferred if the band had chosen to maybe do extended interlude, maybe going into a bigger breakdown before going into a solo to end the track. But yes, this is how the album opens. It's a great opening. I think it's a great track. And up until the full release of the album, it was my favorite track. The aesthetic then moves more into the black metal side with the next few tracks, Abaddon, continuing that blackened, depressing, occult-like sound with more orchestration, more instrumentation, more choirs and strings, the whole lot. And it is a really nice sort of wall of sound effect that goes from start to finish. And then we get to King of Fire, which for me holds probably my favorite riff of the album. This sort of like really cool, bouncy, groovy riff, which I'll play a sample now. That just sort of got me into that aggressive, dancey mood. Like, I was ready to go into the pit. I was fucking ready. And it's moments like this that really set this album apart from a lot of other things, where instead of trying to be this one pigeonholed sort of style throughout the album, they do change it up. They vary things. They add new elements. They're not trying to be stagnant with their songwriting. Moving forward, we also get the track Eternal Eclipse, which has a really cool section in where we have Luca being this ridiculously commanding guy with like this really cool section in which the best way I can describe it is just have to show it to you, so I'll show it to you. Best way I could describe it is like imagine Moses parting the sea in a weird way, and in here we have sort of Luca parting the chaotic sea and having him push through. With this track, I also enjoyed the fact that there was a bit of repetition, especially on the ending breakdown, which was sort of like a reimagined version of a riff that was previously used, which I do like. I think it's really cool songwriting, and sometimes it can be a lot better for a track to do something similar to before, even if it is slightly different. On to the next track, we have Death Worship, which sees the band going back to their roots, being a bit more of a slammier band once more. And not gonna lie, I quite liked it. I quite liked the fact that they went back to their slam for this, because up until this point, they've been really delving in, digging deep into the whole blackened side, the symphonic side, and to have a small bit of a break, sort of a reprise from all that, and go back to a more straightforward deathcore slammy side is quite appreciated. It shows that the band is still as heavy and brutal as before, and even though they're moving into this new direction, they still retain that heaviness and violence that they always had. So I really enjoyed that as well. Now that we've entered about the halfway point in the album, we get this very chill interlude, which is of an acoustic composition that has been overlaid with nature sounds, the river, pretty much anything you would imagine in a woodland forest. Fun fact, when I was talking to Luca in my interview, he was telling me about how a couple of members from the band went to a cabin in the woods and got a lot of inspiration for this album there. And it's very telling in this track. We have nature with us. It's great. So to just quickly stick on the topic of nature, if you hadn't noticed already, Mental Cruelty did a full overhaul of their aesthetic. And one of the key ways they've done that was actually updating their logo. Whereas if you remember, the old Mental Cruelty logo was very sort of gothic, very satanic, pretty standard for most deathcore bands. This new one here has changed it up, where it is more one with nature. And you can see, if you look on the top part of the logo, it even has incorporation of plant-like elements within it, just to bolster the whole thing of that this is a new era of the band. We are new, we are changed, and this is what we're going to be going forward. Going back to the interlude track on this album, I see it as a really cool sort of like example of where the band is heading for themselves when it comes to sound, when it comes to writing, when it comes to composing. But hopefully you didn't settle down too much, because we got to get back to some brutal deathcore with the next track. The second half of the album kicks off with the title track, A Hill to Die Upon. This also had a music video to go with it, which was fully CGI'd. And talking to Luca about it, I was amazed to see that everything that you see, except the band members, of course, was done in post. All the mountain effects, the flares, the lava, the snow was all done in post, and all done by one guy. Which, wow, that's impressive. That's ridiculously impressive. But as I said, it was fully CGI'd, and the best way I can describe it, it kind of was like an homage to the days of Immortal, where we had Abbott and the boys standing up on mountaintops screaming their heads off, and it was really just a cool homage. When it comes to the track itself, this is probably the most black metal style track yet on the album, and after the very quiet and chill, relaxing interlude, it hits you hard. It hits you pretty hard from start to finish. Also, funny thing was, there was a bit in the track, I think just before like the last chorus, where there was this string section, and I kid you not, in my head I was like, is that Dead Butterflies by Architects? Where have I heard that string section before? So I don't know, it could just be me. I could just be hearing things. I mean, I listen to music a lot, so I am always hearing things. But yeah, that was just a dumb thing I noticed when listening to the track. Alright, moving on. I'm just derailing this. Drawing closer to the end of the album, we have our next track, Extermination Campaign, which had a really nice opener, really nice pre-chorus. All I can say really is that I kind of wish that the rhythm sections were a bit quieter when the leads came in. But I'll discuss more of that stuff in a bit. And finally we come to the track, The Left Hand Path, which to me was my favorite track on the album for many reasons. Well, mainly because the band seemed to pull out all the stops on this one. We had this really cool intro, which, not gonna lie, I did think it was kind of like a indie band sort of a vibe to it. I wasn't sure. And I was a bit like, going into it. But of course, that only lasted briefly, and then we got back into our heaviness. Also, what I really enjoyed about this was the chorus. Speaking to Luca, he did mention that there was a lot of moments throughout the album where we had a bit of clean singing involved by one of the guitarists. In this one, it just felt a bit more prevalent to me and I really enjoyed it. It had this really nice sort of harmony thing going for it. And yeah, I just couldn't stop listening to it. I also like to hear that we had actually a breather where the orchestration could actually do their own thing without anything else interrupting it. I think that's a really cool thing to do because it sort of validates the whole orchestration side. And just in general, I thought the orchestra was really well composed on this track. I think from front to back, it was my favorite track. Loved it. Now, as much as I do speak of this album quite fondly, there is some issues I have had with it, and a lot of them stem from the actual mix. Now, this album was mixed by Josh Schroeder, and if you don't know, he's mixed such bands as King 810, In Heart's Wake, and of course, Lorna Shore, just to name a few. And here, he's done a great job, except for a few things. Now, a lot of these issues that I do bring up are similar ones that I had with the Lorna Shore record, Immortal, as well. One being that I find that the kick drums are always really loud. There's nothing wrong with having like really loud and in-your-face kick drums, but I found that sometimes it was just drowning out what was happening in the rest of the band. Whether it be the mid-range instruments, which a lot of times were getting swallowed by all the power coming from the drum kit. And sometimes, unfortunately, even the vocals themselves were getting lost in kit as well. And this is not just because of the kick drum, also the cymbals had this level of like oversaturation to them that were making them really shimmery, which is great, but I think they could have been a bit more quieter in the mix as well, just so that everything else can breathe as well. Because I definitely felt on the faster sections, especially since this is very black metal inspired, I found that the cymbals were being kind of like this washy thing that was over top everything else. So that's my sort of like complaints when it comes to the drums. My other main issue is also the orchestration in the album. Granted, I really enjoyed the orchestration and what it did for the album, but I felt that sometimes it was just a bit too overpowering. It was too much going on, and in a way that made things sometimes a bit messy, especially if this is combined with those really shimmery top-end cymbals and the drums as well, and with all the other elements happening at once, and I couldn't really get where things were going, and things were getting lost, things were coming out of nowhere. So I kind of wish maybe the orchestration was a bit quieter in the mix, because it would still be visible, it would still be there, but it just wouldn't be so in your face. And smaller things are like, I wish the rhythm sections were a bit quieter on tracks such as Extermination Campaign, where the leads were coming in, because I was really enjoying those leads. I just wish they were a bit louder, or I could hear them just a bit more. But as I said, these are all like small, minor issues that are from the mix. I think if they were going to do a follow-up album to this, I would love to see maybe them trying out a guy like Christian Donaldson, who also did bands such as Shadow of Intent, Ingested, Signs of the Swarm, all that good stuff. But overall, I think this album is really good. I think you should definitely go check it out. I think it was a really cool idea, and I really enjoyed the new direction that this band is going. I would highly recommend this album to anybody who's wanting something a bit different from the regular deathcore that we sometimes get. This was very creative as an album, and I can't wait to see what this band has in store for us going forward. But overall, I will be giving this album a 7 to 8 out of 10 from me. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I want you to write down below, what did you think of the album? Did you like it? Did you not? Tell me why. And as always, thank you for watching this video. If you really liked it, give it a like, and of course subscribe to keep updated on all the content that will be coming out on this channel, because there's a lot of good stuff coming. Hope you have a good day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.